Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of the Conscious Living Podcast, where we seek to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. I, of course, am your host, Jackie Woodside, and I'm beyond excited to have with me today two people who I've recently-ish met, but who've become dear friends and valued colleagues. So Greg Lee and Antonia Van Becker are master healers, energy healers, who've been in this space as long as I have. So it's lovely to meet friends and colleagues who've been in this space as long as I have, 27 years as energy healers, and they've created a beautiful process, which they call CoreTalk. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're going to talk about how it relates to you living life more consciously. So Greg and Antonia, thank you so much for being here. Do you want to say anything else about yourselves so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more?
You know, I mean, we could talk on and on about, kind of the beginning of of how it all stopped. But no, I think, we started Self-Health Institute years ago, really with the
Institute.
Self-Health, yeah, HEALTH.
Yep.
With the intention of bringing healing back into people's hands so that they could be the healer in their family, the healer in their community. Mm-hmm. And so that's really our mission, is to bringing healing into people's hands.
It's beautiful. And what got you guys started on this path and process of healing and energy work?
Well, long ago, actually, it really came down almost like a sledgehammer. And we were basically working in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
I was working for Intel, and Greg was a music software sales guy. And we had some interesting health challenges back there. We had begun our family. We were working long hours. We were passing the babies off at the airports. And I had some chronic stuff with my stomach and with pneumonia and bronchitis. Wow. And then Greg came home from a business trip to Germany with an intestinal issue that would not go away. He lost 40 pounds in the next month or so. And my family basically thought he was dying of pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, well, and me being the stoic Nordic guy,
right,
was 3/4 Norwegian, I thought, I'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
I really didn't ever get sick, and I would just kind of blow through anything. And that was kind of my modus operandi in life as far as health went, is that I'm going to be okay if I just keep going. But this one really took me down. And after 6 months of basically having diarrhea for 6 months, I lost 40 pounds. The last time that I went to the doctor said, Greg, there's nothing medically wrong with you. And that was after 6 months of specialists sticking tubes down my throats and measuring all kinds of stuff. So I left his office that day thinking, I got to take control of my life. I have to be responsible for what happens. And at that point, magical things started happening. As I drove down the road that day, I was starving. I went to a new store called Whole Foods. And if you remember, it was like the lofting smells of the bread and the pastries. And as I'm going through, a woman walks up to me who I had known for quite a long time. And she said, I said to her, I've been meaning to call you. And she said, I know your pancreas is really in trouble.
Wow.
And that began this journey. I went and saw her. She did her healing process on me. And 90 minutes later, I was completely healed. No more symptoms at all.
Ever.
And over the period of the next few years, got very intrigued in all this and just kept kind of following my nose to the place where my brain was telling me to go. And she was doing a class that started. We both took the certification class for this energetic healing.
Wow.
And that was 27 years ago now. And we immediately started our work, and and have loved it since.
Yeah.
Wow, what a delightful story. I mean, you got interested in it because it saved your life, basically,
Yeah.
Yes.
and really you needed to create that wellness within yourself and then bring it to other people. So,
Exactly.
what did Greg, if you don't mind sharing, what did you discern from that energy work with this master healer that you were working with? What did you discern was at the root of the issue?
It was really interesting. At first, I didn't really know, and I didn't know what their approach was
Yeah.
to what had been happening in my life, and I didn't really understand what they had done. I went back for a 6-month checkup, and that uncovered kind of a long cycle of what I would have never thought had actually happened, which was this energetic intrusion. I actually, in that second time that I went to her, there was this like energetic exorcism that happened that we're quite sure was, and I can follow it back to 10 years before that,
Wow.
being on tour with a music group
Yeah.
and actually feeling and having witnesses of other people, of being in a hotel room and having this being that was probably not alive anymore. And it was so interesting what happened over the course of those 10 years, where I would have these horrible dreams, but they had never manifested into anything physical until 10 years later.
Wow, that is stunning. That's just a great story. So you guys know that I'm just passionate about conscious living, about empowerment and enlightenment, awakening humanity to the truth of who we are, to our divine nature. And clearly you're aligned with that message in the work that you do. So I like to just dive in with the simple yet profound question. What does it mean to you guys as energy healers of a process that you've developed? You want to hear more about this, the CoreTalk methodology? You want to hear more about that? But how do you understand this notion of living consciously? Everybody's talking about it now, right? It's funny you mentioned Whole Foods. It's like, well, I'm living consciously because I go to yoga and I shop at Whole Foods and I've got some crystals on my nightstand
Right.
so it becomes this thing about doing what we're doing. Are we making conscious decisions? Whereas you and I deeply know conscious living is about who you're being and your
Yes.
awareness. So,
Yeah.
what does it mean to you as energy practitioners and healers to live life consciously?
The most important tenet for our work is be here now.
Mm,
And it's all about being in the moment, feeling what you feel in the moment, and seeing your thought processes and your beliefs and all of that stuff going by through your brain and starting to be very aware of what that internal chatter is telling you versus how you're feeling in your body, in your emotional body, we love to call the super consciousness, the mind, body, and the spirit. So
mhm.
what is in that whole package that is so much all your thoughts and beliefs from your brain,
Yeah.
but then all of these emotions from your body, and putting that together to stay in the moment without stressing about the past or worrying about the future, being in the moment and manifesting how you want to feel and how you want to be.
Okay. I love that. I love that. So, what you're talking about is kind of my definition of consciousness. Your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts create this energetic vortex that we live in. Uh, and I love that last part that you said of being able to manifest how you want to feel in the moment. And I'm thinking about the listener right now who maybe is struggling with chronic depression or maybe struggling with an anxiety condition. I mean, who's not, right? In the times that we're living in, there's a lot of anxious people out there, all the uncertainty and the climate change and the political unrest, the culture wars, not only here in the US, but really quite around the globe.
Mhm.
So, and I love this notion of manifesting how you want to feel. But I'm thinking of that person and even myself back in the day when I was depressed.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, and I would love to just, because Greg had his whole story that was happening, and
Right.
I had a part of it that was also happening at that time. I had mentioned that I'd get bronchitis and stuff like that. Well, we were in this busy schedule in Silicon Valley, and I was pregnant with our first child, 18 months or 8 months pregnant. And I was out in the backyard raking leaves and trying to do everything right. I was still
Right.
working, I think, and just trying to get everything ready. And I got a blister, and I'm like, oh, okay. And didn't pay any attention to it, kind of like just keep going, nose to the grindstone, let's get everything done.
Right.
And the next morning I woke up and I was like, oh, wow, my hand's kind of stiff. That's weird. But I was like, oh, I'll just, I had all this stuff to do. And I went and I had a doctor's appointment later because I had bronchitis when I was pregnant and I was on antibiotics. And I was like, as I went through the morning, I was like, wow, I feel kind of dizzy. I don't feel right. I think I'll go to the doctor's appointment like a little early. And so I got to the doctor's appointment and I'm explaining what's going on. I'm like, yeah, and my hand kind of hurts and I feel weird. And he's like, oh, roll up. He looks at my hand and he's like, it's kind of red. And he's like, roll up your sleeve. And I rolled up my sleeve and there was a red line going all the way up my arm.
Oh my gosh.
So
And for those of you who don't know what that red line means,
Right.
red line gets if it gets to your heart, you're goners.
You're gone.
So it's blood poisoning.
Blood poisoning. Yeah.
Yeah. And so luckily I was in the doctor's office. He pumped me full of like 3 more really crazy antibiotics and it was fine. But what I realized in that moment was that I had no control over my body.
Yeah.
I was just charging ahead all the time. And what I realized and this is for that person who's anxious and depressed, the way that I dealt with my crazy upbringing of alcoholics and suicide in the family and all of this stuff is it made me sad. And hence that's why I was getting bronchitis and pneumonia all the time. And it made me anxious and that made me have the irritable bowel. But what I realized was that all of these things were coming about because I was ignoring the way I was reacting to those past traumas.
Yeah.
And I wasn't feeling how I really felt.
Right.
And I was ignoring so many things and just like, nope, you got to keep working. I was a workaholic, basically. Keep going.
Yep.
So what our process of getting certified and then teaching the certification was realizing exactly what we're talking about. Slow down enough to really feel how you feel and be able to ask yourself, what do I want right now? What do I want? So that I make the choices for myself that are right for me and not right to continue all of the chaos and the bad behavior and all sorts of things that led up to those feelings.
Yeah, right.
And yes.
That's what I call living a default life. You're living a default life. It's somebody else's life. And I love what you said, that one of the first parts of that is slowing down.
Yes.
And we both know that our culture doesn't support that, right?
Right.
And we're living in such a sped up time that there's so much to do and everyone is always so busy that without that capacity, so this is so good. So one of the premises for you of conscious living is simply slowing down, listening, feeling how you actually feel, being able to identify that, by some inner focus. And then I love that, asking the question, what do I really want? And I did some similar work around that in my life design course. And what I find, and this I'm sure you'll resonate with this, is too often when people think, well, what do I really want? They're regurgitating some cultural message that we've been spoon-fed from the media and our peers, our colleagues. And it takes a while to get down to that, the essence. So what do I really want? Not my ego or the
Right.
enculturated mind that's been filled with other thoughts, but
Right.
the I of I,
Yes.
the truest, deepest part of yourself.
Yes.
Well, and that sometimes takes a little bit of doing to get to it, because
Right?
much of what our brain wants to tell us when we ask what do we want, it says, well, let me to make sure that you're going to be protected first.
That's right.
Because the thing that you really want down deep might look very dangerous to your
Right, to
kind
your
of active
brain.
brain as far
Yeah.
as what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's really a question, especially when you're in those depths of feeling, how do I get through this? How do I get to where I start to feel better? Because
Yeah.
that's what you're thinking when you're in that place. How do I take a step? And the only way to do it is to take those small steps.
Mhm.
So the small step is,
Yeah, let's outline
first.
a couple of them. I
Yeah.
love this. And I think that's really important what you said, Greg, that it really does start with small steps.
Yeah.
And I think too often what makes the big headlines or the blog posts is kind of this overnight transformation,
Yeah.
And I know for myself, that certainly couldn't have been further from the truth. I mean, it was
Correct.
years of small steps to move me from what I like to say hot mess to happy and blessed.
Right.
So Greg, what was in your mind there? Let's talk about what are some of the small steps that people can slow down, start listening, identify with the authentic voice of our spiritual nature or our conscious nature rather than the ego.
Yeah, I think one of the first pieces is to realize how you feel.
Yeah.
Is to really realize, okay, so if I'm depressed, so what does that feel like? Because it's so easy to be in the kind of, how do I get out of this stage? And really what we want to do more is we want to get more into it, because we have to be able to hear, what is my body trying to tell me about this feeling? What is the kind of, what are the visceral pieces of this, so that I can begin to connect? Now, this is the part that I love, is our body knows exactly what to do. So if we start to connect with these visceral feelings through our breath,
Yeah.
because what do we tend to do when we get feeling that way? We tend to compress and hold.
Shallow breathing.
Yep.
So it's like, if you can, because again, literally baby steps, get up, breathe, take baby steps, have a state change so that you can actually feel yourself in a slightly different environment than maybe the closed down one that you were just in. And then start to, as you're moving in time and feeling, ask yourself the question again, what do I really want? And you actually might start to feel the difference of what you just had. So
And here.
and here it's like,
here.
we need to have changes in our physical environment to be able to have a foundational change. Because if we don't have some physical change, then we kind of feel like we're in the same cell.
Yeah.
So we're not in and literally cellularly, we're not changing until we start to change the breath a little bit. And the breath is just really the first part, because then it really is about, okay, what's my brain telling me that is really making me feel this way? So it's just, there's the complexity of kind of thinking your way out of it is one thing. So what we do, in our teaching is so much go into the body and let the body's energetic pathways do some of the divining, so that the body can say, hey, just run some energy this way.
So wait, what do you mean when you say go into the body? You're not surgeons, so you're
Right.
not standing over somebody with sharp instruments. So what is?
We talk to bodies.
Yeah, you talk to bodies. Okay, so I want to come back to conscious living has to include the body, right? Again, I think we're living in a very disembodied time because of the pace and the technology and how much is coming at us. So much of the intellect is engaged. Yeah, we live right from the neck up. And maybe we engage some muscles if we go to the gym, and that's all well and good. But you're saying we are a whole being, that the body talks to you when you learn to listen. So how is it that you do that, the talk to the body?
Yeah. So let's go back to traditional Chinese medicine a little bit. And what I love about, when you start talking about traditional Chinese medicine and energy, I always say that most of what I learned in my life, I learned from National Geographic.
Right.
So
That's a good education. That's a very good education.
I remember about 15 years ago, so we were about 12 years into our business, and I get this National Geographic issue, and it has a mummy with these tattoos on it, and the tattoo lines are all of the meridians.
Wow.
And this is in Egypt. It's not in China.
Not in China, right?
Or India.
Or India,
Or
yeah.
India. And what we know from looking at the healing texts of all of these cultures is that in parallel, they were all developing these energetic ways of looking at what the body was expressing.
Yeah.
And all of those ways were based in emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
So, and because they didn't have a way of saying, oh, well, that meridian, the kidney meridian really affects blood pressure. They weren't thinking that way.
Sure.
They were thinking about the emotions that were disrupting the flow of energy in
Which
the kidney
would cause
meridian,
the high blood pressure.
which would cause the high blood pressure. And what we love is looking at the emotions that are connected with these energetic channels in our body, and how when we have a feeling, we can say, what energetic part of our body is that connected to? We can go to that, and this is where we're talking to the body now, actually out loud, using muscle testing and talking. And then by gently stroking that energetic line that is managing that feeling, or brings it into the tissues, actually is what we believe happens.
Mm-hmm.
The body says, thank you so much for feeling what I am representing to you. And now that you've done that little stroke, I'm going to let go of that piece of how the body is representing that, and allow you to just let go of that deeper part of that emotion so that you can take baby steps.
And what does that mean to let go of it? How do you understand that?
It's so interesting, because what we find is that these meridians, or the way that the energy is moving through the body, it gets trapped, it gets slowed down, it gets clogged up in areas.
The energy does.
The energy does.
Yeah.
And when we touch it and flow through
with intention,
then the body says, ooh, that feels so good. I'm going to begin to flow again. And what we don't know exactly about the body, because we don't understand the body's brain as much as our cerebral brain. So the body seems to have this system of saying, okay, something's not right. So I'm going to allow that not right to come into a feeling, and have it so that you can actually feel it in your body, and it has a physical symptom to it.
Okay.
So then we look at the symptom and we go, what the heck is that? And we go, oh, that's connected with this meridian, that's connected with this emotion. And then we ask the body, do you want us to trace that meridian? It says, yes, we do it. And what we think the body does, we think that it says, I'm so glad that you understand what I was doing. I'll just not do that anymore. I'll let go of that setting that I was trying to show you something with.
So in other words, the classic thing is fight and flight, or freeze, right?
Okay.
And so you see the saber-toothed tiger, or you step out onto the street and a bus is coming at you, and all of a sudden somebody pulls you back, or you jump back, or whatever happens, but you're there and you're reacting, and your blood pressure goes up, your heart starts pounding, you maybe break out in a sweat. And these are all things that your body does instantaneously in order to represent what exactly happened to you, and so that you can run away as fast as you can, or whatever you need to do, right? Is automatic reaction that your body has to keep you alive. And of course, that's in the most extreme case, but we're doing that like a bazillion times a day with every single thing that we encounter. It's just not at that life or death scenario level, right? If we see a person we love, maybe, oh, and we get butterflies and, all these things, all our catecholamines and all sorts of things happen, but we see someone we don't like, and all of a sudden maybe we're getting a little angry, or we read the news and we get anxious, and maybe we do start sweat and our stomach tightens up, and all of these things happen so quickly, autonomically, and the whole system of the meridian is the emotional side of those reactions, and how, if we don't make sure that we don't keep stepping in front of bushes, in front of buses, or out of the saber-toothed tiger, then those things build up if we're constantly in danger,
or feel constantly in danger,
or feel like it, or feel persecuted or guilty or shame, or any of those things. If we continue to feel that way, that's when that emotional, the lines of the meridians get weighed down and heavier, and not able to really flow, which is what our body needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
And so that's what our work does, is to help, get all this gunk out of the flow from all those adverse experiences that we all have, so that the lines of our energy can flow so much more easily in our body to service our organs and our systems and everything that we need, so that we don't have to have a physical manifestation of what emotionally is happening to us.
Wow, so fascinating. So do you consider yourselves as energy workers more kind of focused on physical healing, emotional healing? What? Yeah.
I love that.
So, when we started, we'd have people come and it was all symptoms.
Okay.
The symptom,
all physical.
And what we
Lower
noticed
back, I've got this, chronic condition. Headaches, yeah.
And sometimes, many times, it would be the end of the road. We would be the last. They tried everything.
Right.
And even if it was a simple symptom, or even if it was very complex, many times it was the end of the road. It's like, I don't know, I'll try this.
Right.
So at first it was very symptomatic. But what we noticed is that people, when they would come back, all parts of their life started to flourish. Their business got better. Their relationships got better. They would start to come and ask us questions about relationships, and then say, hey, ask my body if this person is bugging me. Ask this body if this person is trying to manipulate me.
Controlling.
So that started to become, over time, what do you really want? Right. So now when we have people, and we work a lot with healers, because we're certifying and developing this whole group of healers who can do CoreTalk. So when they come to us and they say, yeah, I got this shoulder thing, and and my sinuses is kind of bother me, we say, okay, let's go. Would you think it would be helpful to get to the root of the cause?
Yes.
I guess. So then we start to look at
the core
issues, and the body takes us back to these very early times, and the person can just usually totally relate. Oh yeah, that's when we moved, my parents got divorced, the cat died, and it's a seminal part of their life that energy got stuck. And then it looks that way later. So as we're working with those people, we start to say, find out what's really important. So we start to ask them, what do you want in your business? And be specific.
And in your life.
And what are the things that you're not getting right now that would just make your life so much better if you were able to do this? And then we put the focus on that. And then we ask the body what to do, and it goes to the symptoms. And it'll go to the ages, and it'll take 3 or 4 things that they had said were important issues for them, and it will be able to get it down to 1, and that 1 will serve all the issues.
Nice. Wow. So do you work with people like kind of longer over time?
Yeah, it's really important to us for people to be able to have the journey of healing be more than just us saying, here's some fish.
Yeah.
Because for us, we don't want to be a restaurant. You know, we're more in the business of being able to teach people how to serve themselves in life. And it's so important because then they can be the walking example and they get excited
Right.
about what's possible in their own realm with their own energy, their own abilities.
Right.
Yes.
And that's, we're writing a book about this right now, but you know, the culmination and what we want for every person is to be full of themselves. And so it's all about taking out everything that isn't you, that those societal mores, the conditioning, somebody else's beliefs, all of those things, those old stuck things that, you know, don't help you anymore, and clearing all of that out so that your beautiful innate genius self and abilities and gifts can flow and fill our entire being so that it shines out of every part of who they are. And people see that and say, oh, I want what you have.
Right,
I
right.
want that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And they naturally come to you because you are so authentically who you are.
What I love what you're saying is that you have to empty out first before you can kind of, experience the fullness of who you are, empty out the societal norms, the expectations, other people's opinions, other people's preferences, what you think they think of you,
Exactly.
what you think they want of you, really just letting all of that go because it's all default stuff. It's not your authentic self. It's not your authentic nature. And when you can clear that out, often, even from way back in earlier parts of our lives, all the way up to last week, whatever
Exactly.
issue you might have had with your boss or your spouse or whatever, beginning that clearing process so that the energy is then available to who your authentic nature, your divine nature, to really experience the truth
Exactly.
that you are the active co-creator of your life, and to be present to that and be able to begin co-creating by
Yeah.
slowing down, feeling your body, feeling your emotions, asking, what does my authentic self really desire in this life? I mean, you
And
guys did
that's
that.
consciousness.
Yeah, that is conscious living right there. What you guys did that when you went from, kind of corporate careers in technology into the healing arts and energy healing. You did that exact process before you began teaching it.
Well, and because we're such complicated beings, it's a continual process. You know, and I forget the Indian poet philosopher said, we are in the castle. We have entered into the castle and our job is to explore it. I'm paraphrasing
Yeah,
horribly, but
yeah, yeah.
this life, this being, we continue to grow. It gets deeper and deeper. So it's not like, oh, I have to do all of this first before I can do anything. No, it's like, no, you do a little baby steps again. You clear a little bit out. Oh, I feel that. I feel I can make better decisions. You clear some more out. Oh my gosh, I'm not attached to that sticky energy manipulative person that I used to
Right. Yeah.
hang out with, right?
Yeah.
Clear out a little more. Oh my gosh, look at the abundance I'm drawing towards me. So it's a lifelong
Yeah,
pursuit.
it is. It is a lifelong process. That's why we're here.
Right.
That's why we're here. It's one of the things I love to teach, that our purpose is to grow, exactly as you said, to grow in consciousness, to be more aware, to be more enlightened, to be more loving and patient and kind and connected, and to really shed those lower parts of ourselves of, fear, anxiety, depression, uncertainty,
Right.
scarcity. We're not
Exactly.
born to live that way. And our walk in life is to really move into those higher realms of energy and consciousness, to know that we are, in fact, the ones that we've been waiting for. Yeah. So I know people are going to want to hear more about you, talk to you about your work. Where's the best place for people to get in touch with you and follow you?
Yeah, you know what I think would be really cool because we have this process that we're talking about a little bit.
Yes.
We have something called the switch, and you can go to selfhealthinstitute.com and you
Okay.
can click on the switch. And Jackie, you might even have a
A
link to
link.
the switch. So, and we'll give that to you if you don't.
Yeah, we can
So
put it in the show
so
notes.
it's a great way when people get that, you can kind of go, oh, I really like what these guys are doing. Or you can say, not my stuff. But
Right, right, right.
from there, we'll be connected and then you'll
Nice.
be able to get things. We do a lot of things that are to invite community in.
Nice.
And then we
Hmm.
do a process and you get to feel what it's like, what we're talking about. Because it's all about, there's so many things in the world right now that you have choices of what to do
Yes.
and trying to make a choice based on what you read or
Yeah,
maybe what you think it might be is confusing. So we love to
it is.
actually just
Yeah.
do things with people.
Yeah.
So when people come into our community and into our realm, we do stuff, and a lot of times it's free, so it's kind of fun.
So great. That's so great. Yeah, I want to pick up on what you said, Greg, because there are a lot of teachers and healers out there. And I want to reinforce what you said for people to go to selfhealthinstitute.com, choose the switch, get involved in it, because I think one of the best ways that we can live a conscious life is by having really important, masterful teachers, guides, healers in our lives, some for a time, some for a decade, some for a lifetime. But for people to really understand that without some kind of a teacher, mentor, or guide, it's really hard to live life consciously. So thank you for being that in my life and in the lives of thousands of other people. It is delightful to be friends and colleagues with you. I'm so passionate about your work, your calling, and what you're bringing to creating a more conscious, enlightened, empowered world. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank
Thank
you
you, Jackie.
so much for
So fun.
having us. So beautiful.
Mwah.